and a jar of rose petals with oil.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah. It's like just chilling down.
Give me just a second. I like how it's just in the middle of the floor.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with it.
Give me
I'm
just a
trying to
second.
figure out what to do with it. Cause like I'm like, okay, the good ones I'll use for like making this stuff, and then the ones that aren't so pretty or they're starting to rot, I'll just like dry them. So I just put them in the microwave to dry them. So it's like you won't tell really. It's like, well, now I have a pile of these. I don't quite know what to do with them.
Yeah.
I feel like I could figure something out. Just don't know yet. I feel like I have that whole thing with everything in my life. Like I feel like I could do something with this. I don't quite know yet, but eventually. And it's when I start to become a hoarder. I used to do that when I was younger. Like I have like little things saved up. I'm like, I could use this for something, and I'm like, no, I gotta throw it away because I'm never gonna use it. I'm guessing the other room is probably full. Oh yeah, I remember last time I was here, I was gonna draw something, and then I fell asleep. I only just wrote down the concept of it. I just only written the words down. I read it like the next day. I'm like, what? Oh, feather ruffler.
It
It was like some kind of Sesame Street creature-looking thing. Completely forgot the idea. Oh well.
All right. I gotta go to work here soon.
No. Have a good day or night.
I will. You too.
Thanks. So are you like in the other room too, Audra?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay. I know sometimes people are like in both of them.
I'm just working.
Alright, cool.
I
Is
got
it
enough
just like boring
actual work
stuff?
that I decided to sit in my office and finish the website, or at least work on it for another hour. My own stuff.
Is it like tech stuff?
Well, I mean, the fact that I'm building a website is techie, but I'm actually doing it for a book, so I'm always like redesign. I'm working to get, like the whole platform figured out, and I've done a few different things, and I actually signed up for this like marketing course because it's like, all right, I know I can find it on my own, but if I'll do the course, then I'll feel like I spent money and need to do it. So I need to actually implement stuff. Right.
Like something that's an actual motivation?
Yeah. So I'm working on doing a splash page for. I'm gonna try to build, a nice more or less a draw page for all my books so that people will sign up for email lists so that they will buy my book. Because apparently that's
Okay. I see.
successful things. So I'm trying to build them, and then I don't know. And also, I'm kind of teaching myself Dreamweaver, so because I've used a lot of like WordPress and different things, but I'm like, for some things I should just. It's way better to just put together a simple little uh, bootstrap site or something.
Mhm. That's cool. It's probably something that's useful to know how to do. I forgot what it was. I remember. Oh, cool.
That's what I'm doing right now. Preview doesn't show the picture for some reason.
I see a picture of a book. Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the editor, and now I've got a preview going up. So I think and I'm just trying to design kind of a basic outlay. So I'm gonna do sections. I'm gonna have like just the book,
Mm.
just the blurb, and then like a do something action button, and then I'm gonna have a section for like about the author, and then I'm gonna have a section for where I can throw up some of the reviews I've gotten and stuff. I need more of them, but put up some that looks good, and then maybe some more action buttons at the bottom, and then I need to come up with some sort of freebie to get people to get on the email list, but haven't done it yet because I only
Let's
have
see.
one book in each series, so I can't give away one right now. It's like, so I need to write a novella or get the second book out. It's gonna be a while before I get this second book for the series out though.
How many series have you started?
I've kind of got three right now. I've got a nonfiction, a thriller series, and then a series of urban fantasy novellas.
Hmm. Urban fantasy?
Yeah, like Harry Dresden. Trying to think of some others. Charlene Harris is kind of, I think, it's more or less fantasy esque, set usually a modern context, and
Okay, like
usually with a bit of a noirish feel. Like it's got this kind of first person detective kind of feel to it typically.
oh,
It's
okay.
first person
Neat.
snark.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
anyway, that's
that
what I'm doing.
reminded me of a story I had. Um See, that's the issue for me. Like, I have a story in my brain and part of it's written out, but then I don't actually write it down, or I draw a picture of it, and then that's like a symbol for my whole story, but I don't ever get to writing it.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of time I intend it being like some kind of an animation or a web comic sort of visual story, because I imagine it all in my head as like a movie.
Yeah, I do a lot of visual concept stuff.
Yeah.
It's always a back and forth. It's kind of interesting. My friend that I co-write with a lot, I kind of started talking to her one time and realized that she kind of has aphantasia, so she doesn't really she doesn't think of things in images, which is kind of weird.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I'm like, I thought everybody did that.
So how does she imagine, or how does she think of things?
I don't know, but it's not particularly visual.
Like, is it like, trying to think of how to explain it. Everything in my head is visual.
Yeah,
Well, not visual. There's a mix of visual sounds and sensations, and it's weird.
well, she's interesting because she's much better at like associating sound and music with stories,
Hmm.
and I'm not. Like if we've talked about doing some uh, like web series and things like that, and when I think about doing like cinematography, like I can imagine the visuals and the timing and pacing a lot. But I never, it's always a mystery. Like how do you know what music to put with it? Whatever, like that one's, there's no like kind of automatic understanding of that for me.
I see. A lot of times when I like try to come up with stories, it usually is with music I listen to. It's like a lot of different things inspire me, but music's one of them. What kind of is my easiest to try to imagine, like for a movie or a type of scene.
Right.
It's usually not a whole movie for a song because they're short. It'll be like I'm thinking either in the form of like a trailer or like a small scene within a world. So it usually helps set atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think in my head. Like if something is quiet before crescendos, the build up where it's kind of not as loud, it'll be during the part of the story where it's like a transition from some kind of a action scene. You know how like in a movie something will happen, but then after some kind of a like action or dramatic thing happens, there's kind of like a cool down period or a transition period.
Right.
Yeah, like it's moving to the next thing, but so the music will be kind of quiet and stuff, and then once it starts building up, if there's like a lot of high percussion and like lots of sounds going on, it's kind of more actiony. I would usually imagine an action kind of scene happening or a chase scene or something like that. And then if it's kind of a sort of song where it's yeah, it is kind of complicated. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean it's there, but it's one of those things I could decipher it logically,
Mhm.
but I don't, at least at the moment, have a feel for it, which is what's kind of weird.
Yeah. So a lot of it for me is kind of linked with feeling or impressions I get.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like I already asked this before tons of times. I just kind of wish I was good at this, like making characters.
Is that where you find you have trouble, or?
Yeah, because I have like tons of settings and worlds and like a lot of detailed like things in it, which I already have a good feeling. It's already worked out in, and a lot of times I'll come up with the plot too, but I don't have the character in it, and I don't want to just copy paste characters just to be devices to get the plot going. That will feel not. It won't feel as organic or interesting to me. So uh, it's like a big empty hole.
Right.
I kind of want to have like a way to trying to create a character I like and have them go into this environment that I already created and then see how they interact with it and then start building it on that.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Characters are interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like they're the most important thing, and that's the issue that kind of gets me all tripped on.
Right.
A lot of times when I used to make characters, I feel like they were too similar to myself, and I'm like, I feel bored. I find like way more interesting characters being types of people that are different from me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things. Since you're kind of been hanging around looking at MBTI, there's a lot of usefulness there.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I got into it.
I randomly plot. I decided that I should write a book about characterizing using analytical psychology. So I've been playing around with it because I was thinking about, if you read, like there's some really good stuff in like screenwriting books. Uh,
Mhm.
and they talk about characters and their relations to each other, and then I got to thinking about how that if you kind of typed your character, that the relative um, character relationships would change. So like the appropriate, the most appropriate trickster character, or the person who's going to be the trickster to a character is going to change. They're not trickster to the whole story. They're just, each character based on what type they are would have a
Mhm.
particular. You can kind of see how they're, what the default relationship would be between them and other characters just on a casual level.
Mhm.
And then I don't know, it makes more sense in my head. But anyway, kind of talking about making it relative to each character and examining those relative relationships from each perspective,
Yeah,
and
no,
making
exactly.
a
That I
dynamic kind of interrelations, doing that.
Yeah, that's what I was actually trying to kind of do with the socionics with the different relations. Like I
Hmm.
was trying to examine the conflictors relationship,
Right.
but it's kind of hard because whenever I ever ask about that, everyone it kind of seems like people say, "Oh, you're supposed to be with duels, avoid them." But the interesting thing is, though, I like my conflictor types apparently.
What's your conflictor type?
The ESTP.
Oh,
They seem really interesting to me.
they're fun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think that helps. It gives you, a little bit to work with. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that it just depends on the story. Some stories I start with a character. Some stories I start with a premise.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have different ones, and I go, okay, I need some characters for this premise. Let me think of some characters. Do any of these seem to actually? Sometimes I find those, and I'm like, oh, these kind of all. Here's three things that I've come up with independently, but they all actually kind of fit together nicely.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like if you have I remember read somewhere it's like if you have what are they called? Support characters or whatever, not the main ones. If you
right.
combine them into one person, it'll make them more interesting.
Sometimes I split them. I did that, but I think I ended up actually splitting one of the characters into two. A
Mm.
couple of revisions later. Uh, you know, and then just trying to get a hand, a lot of times like first draft, like you've got your main character, you've got your protagonist, maybe your antagonist, and definitely with your protagonist and your antagonist, you need to know what is really running them, because or
Hmm.
any really major perspectives, and I always try to come up with kind of three layers more or less, because there's
Hmm.
all these like really long character sheet exercises, and I get bored with those really quickly. So
Yeah, no, yeah, I was trying to look at them, like I forgot when, and I'm like, I'm bored.
I try to do basic stuff. Like I go through and I go, okay, and I do a basic 3 act structure kind of outline usually. So it's like, all right, what's in the first act? What's the character's external motivation, right?
Hmm.
What makes them move? Why are they going to change what they're doing normally to do something exciting, which is the book, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And because that's a pretty typical structure, right? It's business as
yeah.
usual, and something changes. What is the motivation for that change that puts them in the context and in the plot and in the situation that I want them in?
Hmm.
Does it make sense to the character? Yes. What's that? And then what's their internal? What do they think is their motivation? What is and then I usually try to put an underline like psychological, but what's really being manipulated here?
Yeah.
So like Cass Elkins in this book that I'm working on, that I've got out right now, like, for an example, because I'm familiar with hers because I've worked it quite a bit. The external motivation is that she owns a ranch, and she needs money, right?
Hmm.
And so this stuff happens, and anyway, there's an opportunity to make money. So that's why she moves, and it requires her moving. So she goes, okay, I need the money. Here's this opportunity to make money. That's external motivation, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. All right, and then her internal thinking is, okay, why does she want to keep the ranch? Why is that important, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times, I think a character probably doesn't really understand. You know, it's they think, oh well, it's I don't know because obviously you want to keep the ranch, right? Obviously, a lot of these things you're like, maybe it makes surface level sense. They said
Mhm.
it would make sense. But then down deeper, I try to go, especially with thriller stuff. Okay, well, I mean, and with everything, but it's especially when you're having somebody try intentionally psychologically manipulating people. It's important to get to that lower level. All right, what really is motivating that character? It almost, I mean, you could relate it to probably Enneagram if you were why, and
Mhm.
like with this character, it's the challenge. The character doesn't actually care that much about the ranch.
Mhm.
They're not they're not really that nostalgic. Like there's actually no evidence to be like their families only owned the ranch for 20 years. It's not There's not a huge history. There's not all this other stuff. It's just kind of the challenge of, well, people said they couldn't do it. Is probably more likely the challenge. And understanding that is how you can really change the character long term.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of not an antagonist, but a manipulator character that is figuring that out and thinks and is going to pull those strings and go, oh, this character is not consciously I'm not conscious, is not consciously going to be convinced to do these things, but pushing those unconscious, but subconscious levers is what's gonna. And so I usually do that. I try to have about about three levels on average. And then a lot of times it just comes out to, okay, what does the character want? What does the character think What is it the character thinks that they want? What do they actually want, right?
Mhm.
And then how does that change, and different things.
Yeah, when you were explaining that, something my brain just went click.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I think that's the thing. I didn't have like the direct definition for what I was trying to do. It's basically trying to find that second underlining thing of motivation. Because recently, like for example, I'm trying to understand like ESFJ types. Because uh, I guess I'm in contact with a lot of these types. And
Right.
I was just trying to understand their motivations because it's something that kind of confuses me. Or there's like a particular type of person I'm trying to understand. I don't
Right.
really fully understand their motivation. Like, why is this important to them? Like, I don't get
I find
why.
that, yeah, I mean, I find that
Anyway.
it relates to their motivation, but I would say that probably the cognitive types are more important for understanding how they're going to talk and
Mhm.
how they're going to perceive, for lack of a better, it's how
Yeah.
it's, in a context. Like if you were writing from a character's perspective, okay, if you've got an SI Dom, what are they thinking about? What is kind of their general focus? And I think
Mhm.
that kind of helps. And then I probably and then, but yeah, as far as why they're moving, I think that's generally going to come down to more Enneagram type things. And of course, it's a combination of the two, but
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think the two of those put together is where you're going to figure out why they're doing things. So you're like,
Yeah.
I've got this person who's kind of counteracting what you would think their type would care about. Why? Oh, because they've
Mhm.
got a conflicting Enneagram motivation, which kind of overrides that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I don't know. That's how I try to do characters. Like, I mean, like
Yeah. No.
individually, like the character, like I like to, you know, play around. And then there's a concept that I read about. Oh, one of my favorite authors talked about it, and it's kind of simple, but it's really effective. And that's talking about giving them props. Like when you actually start building and you're trying to make them memorable and identifiable.
Mhm.
Talking and looking at what you name them and having features or props that two or three things that are really only associated with that character. A thing they always have with them, or a thing they always say, or these other little things that kind of
Yeah.
help you give you extra kind of pointers. to make it easy to identify that character at times. I don't know. There's a lot of
Yeah, I see. I call them quirks.
yeah. I mean, there's things like that. I took a online course kind of done by James Patterson. He had one where he said write down like 50 adjectives or something, right?
Hmm.
Or traits, and then go through it and cross out all but three until the three you have are kind of an interesting combination or something, you know.
Oh, huh. That sounds like a
Oh,
fun
that was a fun
exercise.
exercise. There was some
Yeah,
kind of brainstorming and then reduction. So I'm like, yeah, I like that one.
yeah.
I never tried it, but it was a cool exercise.
That sounds interesting. What was I gonna say? Oh, with the motivation thing again. With what they want or think they want and what they actually want, they might not necessarily be aware of. That's the kind of thing that seems to be fascinating with me, with people. I notice with some people, um, they act a certain way, but they're kind of unconscious of the other stuff in there, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, those are good tips. Thanks.
I don't know. Like I said, start with your main character, figure out what makes them tick on 2 or 3 different levels, and that's usually enough to get the story started for me.
Yeah.
And then probably the next person I would hash out more of is the antagonist, even if you don't see him much.
Mhm.
Because even if, what little you see them needs to be really pretty well thought out. And of course, that's your main conflict, is your main. Sometimes they're not always the same person. That's another interesting thing. Is sometimes the plot antagonist is not necessarily the protagonist's character antagonist.
Yeah.
There's usually a physical conflict, and then I usually try to put in a psychological conflict, and they're not
Mhm.
always this coming from the same direction. And the
Yeah.
story secondaries, a lot of times I start with relative archetypes to the character. I'm like, all right, I want a character that is similar to the character, but also kind of manipulative and kind of a mentor, but not necessarily, like I want this troublesome character that really kind of messes with and has a major kind of effect on my character and then or protagonist. And then there's like,
Mhm.
oh, I want a character that kind of contrasts. I want a couple of contrasting characters.
Mhm.
And then I go like, okay, well I need these contrasting characters and I need them nearby. So where do they need to go in the story? What's their purpose?
I see. Yeah, yeah. Build it like that.
And kind of build it that direction, or back and forth, or sometimes build it for
Yeah.
both ends. And the story says, well, I need these sorts of people moving in order to make the plot work, and then you go back to your protagonist and you go, and I need these sorts of people to really highlight my protagonist
Mhm.
to make them better. And so then you go, okay, well, where can I take these people and which slots do I fit all these people into? And I think that's probably a good way to go about it. But you
Yeah,
don't have
that
to get
sounds
all
like a
of it
plan.
done either with the first draft. That's something that I've learned is, start with two, see what goes, see what pops up. Sometimes you'll randomly generate characters, and then you can go back and you go, this character really ended up being way too busy. It needs to be two characters, right?
Mhm.
Or this character is really not that exciting, and this one, like, I could merge these. Like, this could be the same character and serve the same purpose.
Yeah.
I've done. I think people will have a tendency to go one way or the other. I tend to have too few characters and then end up splitting them, and some people I think do the opposite.
Mhm. Another thing too, I noticed thinking back to all the stories I have, a lot of them in the concepts, they all tend to sort of have like an isolated sort of element to it, or there might be other characters in it, but the main character will go on kind of isolated, facing. It's like a combination. A lot of times there'll be environmental elements that they're fighting along with some other force. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of them take place in a lot of times. I make the environment first. Maybe that's why the environment itself will have a quality to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the environment can be a character in ways.
Like I usually kind of make a theme for the environment where it has like a sort of, I don't know how to explain it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's it's always interesting. You know, there's a lot of ways to do it, but
Yeah.
to me anyway, it's cyclic. You know, and you get better at it as you go. If I'm really trying to hash something out, a lot of times I'll go write a short story. Even it
Hmm.
may be really short, maybe flash, whatever, with a character I'm trying to hash out, or I'll
Hmm.
go write a conversation to that character. Whatever, you know, that's a pretty fun exercise.
Oh, that's interesting.
And just go try to. Sometimes I don't know where, you know, maybe I'm like, all right, I know the character needs to go in the story, but I don't know what the character sounds like. I don't know what the character. So I go and I go talk to him, or I go write a story for him, and just kind of try to get familiar with him.
Yeah. I feel like also like a part of me also wants to like meet more interesting people, so I have more to use if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess the answer to that is just do more interesting things, and I'll probably meet more interesting people.
That does seem to work.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it either, you know, and just
Yeah,
go.
no, I used to stress so much when I was younger. Like I used to be so bothered by it, but now I kind of relaxed a lot more compared to before. I used to like give myself this weird pressure about it. Now it's like I have it, and eventually I know I'm gonna make it happen. I just need more experience. Like from when I was way back in high school to now, I feel like I have a lot more. I don't know. It's like I feel like not much has changed, but at the same time, there's more.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
Hmm.
Oh, I just remembered I should probably throw some clothes in the laundry, but while it's still kind of early, I'll be back. I'm back.
Hey, hey.
So I did some SI things that I shouldn't have to worry about for till an hour from now.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
My stomach is reminding me that I haven't noticed it in a while.
Oh, you should probably do that.
Yeah, I'm about to head out.
All right, cool.
Just finishing up this one thing. Like, okay, finish this row. Don't stop in the middle.
That happened to me during lunchtime. I'm like, oh, I didn't have breakfast. I should probably eat now.
Alright, I'm calling it done for the day. Scram. Talk to you later.
All right, see ya.